This place was never supposed to exist. Hidden beneath the rocky hills of southeastern Turkey, it sat undisturbed for thousands of years.
That there would be burials underneath the walls or underneath some of the pillars or so on, but so far they have not yet found any human remains at the site.
Until someone scratched the earth and unearthed a secret older than history itself.
That location just happens to be near where Noah and the animals in the ark ended the long journey through the flood.
Before Stonehenge, before the pyramids, before the wheel, there was this. Carved stones whispered of a time when people rose from the shadows of the Ice Age with knowledge that defied logic.
Göbekli Tepe is really one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. There are very few finds in archaeology that really change the whole way we look at the past, and that is essentially what has happened.
Symbols, statues, and sacred alignments emerged from the dirt like a forgotten language. This isn't just a dig site. It's the ghost of a civilization so advanced it's forcing us to rewrite human history.
The very first temples in the world are at Göbekli Tepe, and this, in many ways, changes everything.
The hill that changed everything. In the dry, unassuming hills of southeastern Turkey, a mystery lay buried for thousands of years. To any passerby, it looked like a simple mound, just another rise in the rocky landscape. But what it hid beneath the surface would soon rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history. Back in 1963, a team of researchers from a nearby university wandered across the hill. They noticed some strange limestone fragments sticking out of the ground, but assumed they were just gravestones from the Byzantine era. No one bothered to look deeper. Decades later, in the mid-1990s, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt returned to that same hill. This time, someone saw the truth.
Was wir hier sehen, ist nicht von uns wieder aufgerichtet. Das ist so ausgegraben, wie es hier vor uns steht. Die standen noch in dieser Erdfüllung so drin und werden jetzt von uns sukzessive freigelegt.
As they began to dig, curved walls emerged. Carved stones with animals, symbols, and abstract shapes came into view. Massive T-shaped pillars stood upright in circular formations as if arranged by invisible hands.
The site of Göbekli Tepe is a series of circular enclosures, but then in the center of each enclosure you have two particularly big T-shaped pillars of limestone sort of facing each other.
Then came the real shock. Carbon dating placed the site at around 9600 BC. That's over 11,000 years ago. Thousands of years before the Egyptian pyramids, before writing, before agriculture, before cities. This hill, now called Göbekli Tepe, wasn't a village or a home. It was a monument, a sacred space, a gathering place built by people who, by all modern definitions, should not have been capable of building anything like it. Yet they did, and that changed everything. A monument before its time. We used to believe that civilization began with farming, that people settled down, grew crops, and gradually developed religion, culture, and architecture. But Göbekli Tepe turns that theory on its head.
There's no doubt in my mind that there are question marks all around the ancient world. And Göbekli Tepe offers such a giant question mark because, according to mainstream science, we were sitting in caves munching on bananas.
It suggests something radical, that it may have been the urge to gather, worship, and build together that gave rise to farming, not the other way around. At Göbekli Tepe, there's no sign of permanent homes, no clear evidence of crops or livestock. Instead, there are towering pillars arranged in circles, each weighing multiple tons. These weren't the efforts of a few scattered nomads. They were the product of a large, organized effort. Each circle seems to tell a story. Relief carvings of birds, foxes, snakes, and headless humans decorate the pillars. There are abstract symbols, C-shaped curves, H-like motifs, and hands with fingers stretching down the sides. These were not random etchings. They were symbols, perhaps of myth, memory, or worship. And yet, the people who built them had no metal tools, no written language, no wheel. Still, they moved stone. They carved meaning. They aligned their monuments to the stars. Göbekli Tepe stands as proof that humans have always reached for something bigger. that even when surviving was hard, they created sacred spaces to feel connected to each other, to the heavens, and maybe to something divine. This wasn't just a turning point in architecture. It was a turning point in human consciousness. Craft of the ancients. The craftsmanship at Göbekli Tepe is unlike anything else from its time. The builders worked with limestone, tough, unyielding, and heavy. Yet they carved it with astonishing precision. These were no crude, lumpy rocks. The surfaces are smooth, the edges sharp, the proportions balanced. It's as if the stones were sculpted with intent, not just effort. The pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, weren't just shaped. They were detailed. Carvings rise in bas-relief, animals mid-motion, birds with flared wings, and insects that seem to crawl. Even more strange are the humanoid features. Arms, hands, and fingers wrap around the stone columns. V-shaped collars and belts are carved across torsos. Some wear what look like small bags, tools, or offerings no one knows. And they did all this without metal. Antler picks, hammerstones, and obsidian blades were their only tools. Still, the results are breathtaking. What makes it more mysterious is how consistent the style is. Whether it's enclosure A, Burs, B, or D, the iconography remains the same. It suggests a shared understanding, a school of design passed through generations. This wasn't trial and error, this was tradition. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just built to stand, it was built to communicate, to speak across time. And somehow, it still does. The rise of a forgotten civilization. After Göbekli Tepe, the search widened. What if it wasn't alone? What if this wasn't a one-time achievement, but part of something larger? Then came Karahan Tepe. Only about 25 miles from Göbekli, Karahan Tepe revealed itself slowly, like a twin with a different personality. It shared the same megalithic design, T-shaped pillars, enclosures, and symbols. But here, much of the structure wasn't built from stones carried in. It was carved directly into the bedrock. One of its most haunting features is the Pillar Shrine, a sunken chamber filled with upright stone columns, many phallic in shape, facing inward like participants in a silent ceremony. One of the few freestanding pillars stands in the center, surrounded by carved benches and narrow channels in the floor. Nearby, a human head is sculpted from the stone wall itself. Its gaze is permanent, cold, watching. Karahan Tepe also hints at astronomical precision. On the winter solstice, sunlight travels through a narrow opening and illuminates a carved face. Not randomly, exactly, deliberately. What's even more astonishing is that Karahan Tepe is just one of many. Sites like Harbetsuvan, Sefer Tepe, and Sayburç are rising from the earth, each carrying the same signature, geometry, carving, and alignment. These weren't isolated settlements. They were linked, part of a system. A forgotten civilization that once dominated this region long before any empire, kingdom, or written word. Göbekli Tepe was not the center, it was just the beginning. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. Why did they bury it? One of the strangest things about Göbekli Tepe is not that it was built. It was buried, deliberately, carefully, as if the builders themselves wanted to hide it from the world or protect it for the future. Layer after layer of stone, rubble, and earth was placed over the enclosures, not randomly dumped, packed, structured. Some walls were even reinforced before being covered. Broken pieces were placed gently next to upright pillars. Statues were reassembled. The care speaks volumes. The first to suggest this was archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who believed the burial was ceremonial. Maybe the site had served its purpose. Maybe the people moved on but didn't want it forgotten. So they closed it, not in destruction, but in reverence. Later research brought more questions. Some sections may have partially filled in naturally. Erosion, landslides, drifting sand. But that wouldn't explain the restoration work found beneath. It wouldn't explain the clean arrangements of carved stones. Karahan Tepe seems to show the opposite. Statues there appear smashed, pillars broken. Like it was shut down with force, not ritual. Some believe it may have been attacked. Others think it was an intentional act of ending, a way to retire the site from use. Whatever the truth, it's clear these people treated their monuments with meaning. They didn't leave them to decay. They buried them like a body, whole, sacred, and meant to rest until someone was ready to find them again. Tools, fire, and terrazzo floors. The people who built Göbekli Tepe had no metal, no wheels, no carts, yet they worked with massive limestone blocks and carved details as sharp as anything made today. How? Their tools were basic. Hammerstones made of basalt, picks crafted from antlers, and blades shaped from obsidian. Obsidian, sharper than modern scalpels, allowed them to carve delicate features like hands, faces, and feathers. It took time, patience, precision. But their innovation didn't stop at sculpture. Beneath many enclosures, archaeologists found something unexpected: smooth, polished floors. These weren't natural bedrock surfaces. They were man-made. Terrazzo, a kind of early concrete made by burning limestone at high heat, then mixing it with water, clay, and ash to form a hardened surface. To reach the temperatures needed, over 825 degrees, they had to build advanced kilns or fires capable of producing extreme, consistent heat. That's no small feat for a culture with no metal or written instructions. What's even more remarkable is how these floors remain intact. Some still shine under the sun, and their surfaces are level and durable after 12,000 years. These builders weren't just artists. They were engineers, chemists, planners. They built to last. Every detail, from the way the pillars interlock with the ground to the materials used in their floors, shows a knowledge we've underestimated. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a lucky creation. It was the product of generations of learning, a forgotten science, lost to time, still waiting beneath the dust for us to understand. Blood in the stone. Deep within Karahan Tepe lies a chamber unlike anything else. It's carved directly into the bedrock, pillars rising from the ground like frozen figures in prayer. At the center stands one lone stone, free and upright. A narrow channel curves toward it, carved with care. Some say it was used for water. Others believe something darker, sacrifice. There's no concrete evidence of rituals here. But not far away, at a site called Sayonu, scientists discovered traces of human and animal blood on a stone slab. The signs point toward ceremonial activity, perhaps even death offered as devotion. At Karahan, the damage to statues appears intentional. Pillars were broken, faces removed, not by time, but by human hands. These acts could have marked the end of something sacred, a closure, a farewell, or perhaps a takeover by another group with different beliefs, determined to erase the old. What stands is both beautiful and unsettling, a place where stone met spirit, and maybe flesh. The truth remains buried, like so much else in these hills, but the feeling lingers in the air. Something important happened here, something powerful, and even without answers, the stones remember. They always do. The language of light. Each year on the winter solstice, a ray of sunlight pierces a carved portal at Karahan Tepe. It cuts across darkness, hitting a sculpted stone face with haunting precision. For nearly an hour, the light dances across its features, then vanishes. This isn't a chance. It's a message, set in motion thousands of years ago. The builders of these sites weren't just stacking stones. They were tracking the sky. Their enclosures reflect celestial knowledge, sunrises, solstices, and star patterns. Göbekli Tepe's layouts may align with significant constellations. Karahan Tepe, too, was built with geometry and intention. No wheels, no compasses, just raw observation, patience, and vision. These alignments suggest an understanding of time beyond survival. These people were architects of memory, embedding their knowledge into the landscape. The stones became calendars, the sun their storyteller. Long before written history, they recorded time in shadow and light, not to measure days but to mark meaning. They watched the heavens and carved what they saw into the earth and rock. Today, those same rays of light return on schedule, illuminating the same spots. What began in stone now echoes in sunbeams. The dialogue between earth and sky continues, unchanged, precise. and eternal. The magnetic pulse beneath. Buried deep in Göbekli Tepe's main enclosure is something invisible, yet very real, a magnetic anomaly. Discovered by researchers using specialized instruments, this spiral-like energy radiates from the ground right between two massive T-pillars. It wasn't random. It was placed. Such energy can influence brainwaves and perception. In other words, it affects consciousness. Could this have been a sacred space used for altered states, visions, or rituals? It's possible. But there's another theory that takes it in a different direction: farming. Author John Burke believed ancient builders placed seeds in magnetically charged areas. These energized seeds produced better crops, more resistance, higher yields. His tests worked, and Göbekli Tepe sits right at the birth of agriculture. Coincidence? Or did the builders understand something we've lost? Farming exploded in this region within centuries of the site's creation. Maybe the megaliths weren't just spiritual, they were practical, power stations of nature. The combination of magnetism, astronomy, and construction hints at a forgotten science, one grounded in earth and sky, not just belief, but applied knowledge. If true, it changes everything. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple, it was a machine, a place where energy, biology, and consciousness all met, in the soil, in the seed, a network of silence. Across southeastern Turkey, stone circles keep surfacing. Sayburk, Sefer Tepe, Harbetsuvan, all built in the same style, with the same motifs: T-shaped pillars, animal carvings, circular enclosures. It's not random, it's a system, a network of sacred architecture woven across time. Many of these sites lie hidden beneath towns and farmland. In Sayburk, one house was demolished to access a carving beneath its floor. What they found was stunning: leopards attacking a human figure, all etched with lifelike detail. Nearby, a seated statue held its own phallus. It echoed the themes of fertility and death found at Karahan Tepe. Why are so many sites so close together? Perhaps they marked sacred seasons. Maybe each one represented a chapter in a cosmic story. Despite their differences, they share the same architectural DNA, a spiritual code passed through centuries. It's as if a single intelligence or cultural force guided them all. Not a myth, but a memory, one carried in stone. As archaeologists uncover more, the silence grows louder. Each dig is a whisper from the past, offering pieces of a puzzle that once shaped the future. Göbekli Tepe is no longer alone. It's the beginning of a forgotten epic, still unfolding beneath our feet. This isn't just a story about stones. It's a story about us, what we were, and maybe what we lost. Beneath layers of earth, these ancient builders left a message, not in words, but in design, in shadow and light, in magnetism and myth. They built monuments to memory, aligned to the stars and sealed with care. Göbekli Tepe wasn't an accident. It was a beginning, a spark of something vast. And now, as we uncover their work, we're not just learning history, we're touching the edges of a forgotten brilliance, a glimpse of humanity's first light, still flickering in stone.